Number 5 on this list is Okiku. Okiku is definitely one of the strangest haunted dolls out there and certainly has a unique curse to it. Curious Archive says, according to the story of Okiku, the doll was purchased by a 17-year-old boy named Eikichi Suzuki during a visit to Sapporo for a marine expedition in 1918. The doll was a gift from his travels for his 2-year-old sister named Okiku. In some versions of the story she's called Kikuko. When she was initially purchased, the doll had a hairstyle called okappa, similar to a bob cut, which is popular on Japanese dolls. Okiku loved her new doll and it served as the little girl's companion until she died suddenly from a cold-like illness at the age of 3. Devastated by their loss, Okiku's family put her favorite doll on the household altar where they prayed in memory of Okiku. Before long, the family noticed that the hair on Okiku's doll had begun to grow, as if the hair was on the head of a human. The family concluded that the restless spirit of Okiku, who died so young, was now inside her beloved doll. The doll remained with Okiku's family until 1938 when they moved to Iwamizawa in Hokkaido and gave the doll to the Meniji Temple, where she remains enshrined to this day. She is now referred to as Okiku after her former owner. Some believe the hair that continues to grow from her head is the hair of the child, Okiku. The priest who goes and cuts Okiku's hair says that he receives messages from her. These messages appear to him through dreams. They aren't your typical weird dreams though, they are so detailed and specific that he knows it's the work of the doll. He isn't the only one who receives dreams from this doll either. She sends messages to other people who live in this temple too, however, they aren't nearly as nice. Apparently, some individuals have had her attack them in their dreams. This is very similar to another doll on this list that we'll get to later. Dolls that can target you through your sleep are especially dangerous, as that's when you're most vulnerable. Truly don't know why we keep giving the evil demon haircuts and don't instead just give it a nice little trip to the dump. Number 4 on this list is Robert the Doll. Do not take this thing's picture without its permission. If you do, then bad things are going to be coming pretty soon. The Travel Channel says, Robert came to the Otto family of Key West, Florida in the early 1900s as a gift to their youngest son, Robert Eugene Otto. The boy and doll became inseparable, with the child often laying blame for his misdeeds on the doll. The family alleged that the toy often seemed to change positions of its own accord. They also claimed that when their son was alone in his room, they could hear him conversing with the doll and the doll responding in a completely different voice. After Eugene's death in 1974, Robert was given to the East Martello Museum. Visitors who have taken his picture without permission claim to have experienced terrible misfortune as a result of their transgressions. Robert is surrounded by letters of apology and admiration. These letters of apology are basically last-ditch efforts by people to try and get rid of the curse that befalls them for doing anything that Robert doesn't like. I have no idea if these letters work or not, or if it's case-by-case basis. The only thing that I do know is that most dolls you take a picture of don't require you to later come back to them and beg for forgiveness. The original owner, Robert Eugene Otto, died in 1974, and a lot of people believe that this doll started getting evil after that. It lost its best friend and is now taking its grief out on anyone or anything that comes in contact with it. Best course of action for you? Don't come in contact with it. Number 3 on this list is Lily. Now residing at Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures Haunted Museum, Lily was made during the 1800s in Germany and features real human hair. According to the museum's Facebook post, she was discovered by an antiques dealer who took her home but began having recurring nightmares about a little girl who had a very bad accident. She was subsequently put up for sale at the antique shop. On one occasion, a customer's little girl spoke to the doll for 3 hours, interacting with her like a fellow child. She informed the proprietor that Lily was a little girl that had been subjected to extreme violence. When first encountering the doll, Baggins reported that he felt an immense energy radiating from the figure. So basically, if you keep this doll, then you will get haunted with countless nightmares. I have no idea how this doll managed to survive this long and somebody hasn't just burned this thing hot. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel bad about what went down in the 1800s. Whichever girl's spirit is haunting this doll, whatever happened to her, it sounds horrible and it never should have happened in the first place. But maybe destroying this doll wouldn't even be a bad thing. Maybe she keeps giving people nightmares so that people will finally feel the need to get rid of her. I obviously don't know, but I'm just guessing that being trapped in a doll for over 200 years probably isn't the best experience. Number 2 on this list is the Shadow Doll. I recently spoke about the Shadow Doll in a video looking at demons that Ed and Lorraine Warren were scared of. It needs to be brought up again though, because any demon that's gonna scare those two people is obviously scary enough to get any of us. Scare Street says, the Warrens' files do not state why this horrible doll was created in the first place. However, they do state that it was used in satanic rituals and it was created by black magic using human and animal bones. It's rumored that if a picture were to be taken of the doll, it would project itself into the dreams of the person who dared to look at it in the eye. However, it's not only a simple dream. The dream would be so intensely nightmarish that the victims would either suffer from a heart attack or forever be frightened of sleep because of the horrifying looking doll. The files even state that there were a few deaths caused by it. The Shadow Doll was later found in an antique shop, and oddly enough, a couple purchased it. After the purchase, the couple began to encounter the eeriest of nightmares. They later found out that they were experiencing the same nightmares of the cursed doll, and that the husband had scratches all over his back and neck, which could only be traced back to the Shadow Doll. How could you ever go to sleep with this thing in your house? Like, falling asleep is basically a death sentence if you've ever interacted with this doll in person. What I want to know is where this thing came from. Like, we know that it was made using black magic, but by who? Was it some sort of witch that created this? A satanic cult? Was it the devil himself or a demon of sorts? Who made this doll and what is its purpose? If we could figure that out, then we might have a better chance at not only understanding this specific doll, but maybe others that are like it. Sadly, I don't think that the Shadow Doll is going to be letting us in on its secrets anytime soon. And finally, number 1 on this list is Letta. As far as looks go, this thing is definitely number 1 on any list of creepy looking things. The Travel Channel says, short for Letta Me Out, Letta is a 200-year-old wooden doll with human hair. He was discovered beneath a house in Wagga Wagga, Australia by his current caretaker, Kerry Walton. Walton told the Warwick Daily News, I reckon he walks in the nighttime. We came in here as a new house and I've never heard so many strange things in my life. He's found scuff marks on the floor of his home as well as objects mysteriously shifted. Walton has brought Letta with him to multiple television interviews and has started an Instagram page dedicated to the doll. Kerry, my guy, what are we doing here, man? Apparently he has said that multiple people have seen this doll move before and it just walks around the house like it owns the damn place. I took a look at the Instagram page that this guy has for his doll and it's just so creepy. Like, the way that this thing looks, I can't possibly imagine having it in my own home. Some people have rumored that Kerry is actually under the control of this doll and that he's brainwashed. A lot of people can't wrap their heads around the fact that someone in their right mind would want to keep and promote something like this, so that's why it's possible he's actually being told to do it by the doll itself. The only people who know for sure though would be Kerry and Letta, I guess.
Starting off at number 5, we've got the differences between reality and fiction. So this part may not be haunting per se, but it is good to know the difference between the real doll and her movie star counterpart. First of all, the real Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann doll, not an intricate porcelain piece. Definitely not as creepy to look at, but looks can be deceiving. It would be much harder to market a movie with a Raggedy Ann doll as the titular character, so the studio made some concessions. However, the button-eyed fiend is still pretty creepy. Lorraine Warren once said in an interview that it's not what the doll looks like that makes it scary, it's what's been infused within the doll. Evil. That's as convincing an argument as you're gonna get about why you should fear a little girl made of fabric. Which is the creepier iteration? Raggedy or ornate? Sound off in the comments. The case the doll is kept in differs a bit as well. In the movie, Annabelle is propped up within a gigantic glass case, almost like the display at a modern museum installation. In the Warrens Occult Museum, the box is a little less fancy. It's a wooden case with a glass window to display the doll. On top is a crucifix meant to keep the demon at bay, and below the showcase is a hand-painted sign warning warning folks not to open or disturb it. The sign, as well as a tarot card depicting the devil, are more or less identical in both iterations. Beyond these mostly stylistic changes, Annabelle is supposedly represented quite accurately in the movies. From the precautions people take around the doll to her shadowy backstory, Annabelle seems to have an on-screen presence consistent with her own. Swooping in at number 4, we've got Annabelle's origins. So Annabelle was discovered by the Warrens while under the care of a pair of 2 nurses living together in Hartford, Connecticut. One of these nurses, Donna, was given Annabelle by her mother as a gift. It's believed that the mom bought it at a thrift shop, thus the cursedness. It's not likely you'd find a cursed doll still sealed in the packaging. Stranger things have happened though. While there's no solid proof of this, it's also been said that the spirit of a young girl had found her way into the doll. She was around 7 years old when she was killed in a car accident outside of her home. The girl's name was Annabelle, and she'd managed to possess the toy. The movie posits that Annabelle's parents, inconsolable after her death, searched for ways to get their daughter back. The method they decided upon in the end was to bind her soul to the doll, so that she may have physical form once again. Like most reasonable people, Annabelle wasn't satisfied with being a Pinocchio-style being, and instead wanted to be a real person. This is where the evil activity originates. The movie claims she's always looking for a new body to possess. Other tales claim that the spirit haunted the house that the 2 nurses lived in, and the women gave Annabelle permission to take hold of the doll. This last option is given credence by the treatment given to the doll by the nurses. Donna would treat the doll like a real little girl even as odd things were happening in the home. She even gave Annabelle a little bracelet, which she still wears behind the glass at the museum. Sneaking in at number 3, we've got moving autonomously. What tipped the 2 women off that something was not normal with Annabelle was the fact that she seemed to be able to move around on her own. The doll would move around the house during the day, at first only slightly changing her positions, like crossing and uncrossing her limbs, moving her arms, or tilting her head. Eventually she began relocating to different locations in the house. Donna would leave the doll on the couch, head to work, and would discover the doll in her bedroom upon returning. These small movements became even more concerning when handwritten notes began to be discovered around the house. The fact that the parchment used was unrecognizable was distressing, but not nearly as distressing as the messages written on them. "Help me" was a common missive, scrawled with pencil in childlike lettering. Donna and her roommate chalked this up to be a prank, or maybe the results of someone breaking into the house when they weren't around. However, they began to believe that Annabelle was truly paranormal when she levitated her arms onto the table they were eating at. This was enough to have them contact a psychic and try to figure out what this doll was trying to communicate. It was then that they discovered the young spirit residing within the raggedy plaything. Even years later, when Annabelle was held in the case in the museum, she would appear unexpectedly in the Warrens' home. Clawing its way in at number 2, poor Lou. When Annabelle was discovered to be possessed, nobody would have thought she was evil or malicious. This soon changed though when the fiance of one of the nurses came to visit. Lou would come by the house from time to time and would often sleep over on the couch. One night while dozing on the Chesterfield, Lou woke up in a frenzy. He was scared out of his mind and covered in sweat, claiming to have had a wicked nightmare. In this dream, Annabelle was crawling up his leg, then his shoulders, and then got to his neck. Lou thought she was trying to strangle him to death. This was enough to make him toss Annabelle across the room in anger, shouting that she was nothing more than a doll and that she couldn't hurt anyone. Bad call, Lou. Bad call. This seemed to provoke the demonic presence attached to the Raggedy Ann doll, which then caused 7 psychic wounds to appear on Lou's body. He doubled over in pain with claw-like gashes damaging his skin. But before he could get a good look at the injuries, the incisions disappeared. Definitely more evil than any young girl should ever be. And slinking its way in at number 1, we have a killer history. After the incident with Lou, Annabelle racked up quite the reputation for violence and animus. There's a laundry list of incidents involving her attacks on people trying to do away with evil. Apparently the first time Ed Warren took the doll for safekeeping, he put it in the backseat of his car. While driving away, he experienced car troubles and even encountered a demonic attack similar to the one in Annabelle Comes Home. Even after being placed in the glass case, Annabelle was able to cause problems for all sorts of visitors. A priest came by one day and threw Annabelle across the room, attempting to exorcise the demon from her. He yelled that God is more powerful than the devil and that Annabelle was powerless. Soon after though, this man got in a serious car accident involving a tractor trailer. He survived, living to tell the terrible tale. It's even said that he saw the doll in his rear view mirror right before the collision. An even more bloody tale involves a young man who thought it would be funny to antagonize the demonic doll. Against the advice of all present, he banged on the doll's case and laughed about it. Later, he was killed in a motorcycle crash. Granted, he could have just been a reckless person in general, but the encounter with the doll beforehand is creepy to say the least. Lastly, there was an incident in Thailand in which an elderly man died during a screening of Annabelle Comes Home. The British man was vacationing when he decided to see the latest haunted doll feature film. When the lights came up, his body was discovered and he was pronounced dead inside of the theater. This could just be a case of the stress of a horror movie exacerbating pre-existing medical conditions in an old man, but considering all the cursed content related to Annabelle, it's a little extra disturbing. Plus, Annabelle Comes Home is decidedly the least scary of the 3 Annabelle movies, so take that as you will.
Starting off this countdown, we have Jeffrey Dahmer's jacket. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Someone once owned infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's jacket. The seller, Plagle41, claimed that he was in the same class at Dahmer at Revere High in Bath, Ohio. In senior year, the seller was doing a comedy act and needed an army jacket for the sketch. They didn't have one, but Jeffrey was like, "Oh, hold up, I got one," and went to his car and returned with the jacket in hand. The seller used it for the performance, and after the show, Jeffrey said for him just to keep the jacket. Kinda makes me wonder, was that for sure Jeffrey's jacket, or was it one of his many victims' jacket? Like, why was he so willing to give it away? Probably because it was evidence linking him to one of his victims, so he was like, "Nah, you keep it." I mean, I'm just stretching here, but you never know. Anyways, the seller was cleaning up his family's home when he found the jacket in one of the bins. Obviously, by this point, he knew what Jeffrey had done, so his family wanted him to get rid of it and all the bad juju surrounding it. In the end, this jacket ended up selling for $150. In our 4th spot, we have the haunted dolls. I swear, there is a whole section on eBay just for haunted dolls. It's insane. There are hundreds of them. You know, I've seen the movie Annabelle, and no thanks, I'm never buying one. I don't want to risk it. But apparently to paranormal collectors, this is heaven to them. For example, one seller, AkiJ25, was selling a haunted doll, Dakota Spirit Child, that is apparently very active. It also came with a warning saying only people experienced with the paranormal can buy this item. According to the seller, the doll is haunted by the spirit of a child named Dakota, who was murdered by his mom. The doll has been known to break mirrors and gets quite angry at times. Now, fun fact, apparently eBay has a rule that you can't sell anything that offers someone's soul, like selling something that claims to have someone's soul attached to it. You can't do that. So what these buyers do is put a little disclaimer that says, "For entertainment purposes only," but that's a lie, and they only do it to prevent their items from being removed. Now, let's take a look at some of the creepiest dolls I found on eBay. For starters, we got this gem, the haunted vintage antique evil active possessed witch demon doll. And of course, they photographed this doll on a Ouija board because why not? I mean, it is fitting. Anyways, this one is being sold for $100 US. What a steal. Then we have this one, the haunted 16-inch spiritual doll spirit vessel. And apparently it has supernatural paranormal powers. Honestly, Victorian dolls like this creep me the hell out, so no thank you. But hey, if you're interested in this doll, it's cheaper than the other one. And last but not least, and creepiest of all, we have this doll that I swear, if you stare at too long, she will suck out your soul. This is the haunted 16-inch spiritual doll spirit vessel that also has supernatural and paranormal powers. Like, look at it, that one is for sure haunted. And the winning freaking bid was $5,600. Like, are you kidding me? You're literally paying to get possessed. Moving on, at number 3 we have The Hands Resist Him. Now, since this is a horror channel, chances are you probably heard of this haunted painting. That's because this painting is known to be one of the most haunted paintings in the world. So the story goes that this painting was created in 1972 by an artist named Bill Stoneham. Over the years, it has been bought and sold on eBay by a number of buyers and sellers. No one wants to keep it for themselves. Why? Because of how terrifyingly haunted it is. It first appeared on eBay in 2000. The seller said they needed it gone ASAP because it was terrorizing their family. The seller went on to say that their daughter was most affected by it. Their daughter said the boy and the doll in the picture would fight each other at night, whatever that means. But they also got eerie vibes around the painting, so they set up a motion sensing camera for 3 nights just monitoring the painting. The camera captured the boy leaving the freaking painting, or so they claim. So she sold it. The next seller said the painting made them feel ill or dizzy whenever they were around it. So they sold it. The next seller said they heard an exorcist type voice after viewing the painting. They sold it, and so on, you get it. But it seems as if children are most affected by the painting, and it will haunt them in their dreams. As a result, no one wants to own it. Nowadays, it's displayed in an art gallery in Beverly Hills. Moving on at number 2, we have the haunted doll carriage. This next story is gonna give you the creeps. Plus, it happened a couple months ago, so it's really recent. Basically, a family in Brandon, Missouri was gifted an antique doll carriage for their daughter for Christmas. Whitney Merritt, the mom, said the carriage was gifted to them from her mom, who got it from a friend of a friend. They probably all knew it was haunted and just needed someone to pawn it off to. Anyways, as soon as they received the carriage, spooky things started to happen around their house. It started with the knocking. Every so often they would hear creepy knocking on their walls. One night it got so bad they literally thought someone was in their attic walking around. But when they got up there, the knocking stopped and no one was there. This lasted for a week. The second week is when the paranormal activity picked up. They would wake up in the middle of the night to sounds of stuff being knocked over. When they investigated, they found shattered mugs all in their kitchen. This entity broke several mugs in the family's home. They even would slam dishes in the sink. The third week is when it got the worst. That's when Whitney actually saw the spirit that was attached to the carriage. She was chilling when she saw a person walk past the door and into the kitchen. She turned quickly and the entity disappeared. Now, they never knew what was haunting them until they realized that the paranormal activity started as soon as they received that damn carriage. So they were like, F that, and they took it and they stuck it outside, and guess what? The paranormal activity stopped. That's when they decided to list it on eBay. When she did, someone came forward and told her the backstory of the carriage. Apparently, the carriage was once owned by a woman whose husband died in a motorcycle accident, and it's thought that his spirit is the one that's attached to it. Whitney strongly believes that that's the entity she saw in her kitchen. In the end, the carriage was listed for $65, but after a bidding war, someone purchased it for $710. Again, that person is just paying to get haunted. I literally don't get it. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Haunted Watch. What time is it? Spooky time. I know, that was lame, but it made me laugh. Anyways, when I saw this listing, I literally got shivers down my spine. So it was listed as Haunted Watch stuck at 11:29 p.m. According to the seller, the person they received that watch from told them that a 24-year-old woman named Julie once owned the watch. One day she was headed out for a run, so she took the watch off and placed it on her nightstand. But Julie never returned home. She ended up getting kidnapped while on her run. The man that kidnapped her ended up killing her at 11:29 p.m. The exact same time that that watch is now stuck at. That is the scariest thing that I've ever heard. But wait, there's more. The buyer took the watch to a medium to see if the seller was lying, or like what the deal with it was. Without telling the medium anything about the watch, the medium said that a woman named Julie is attached to it. That's insane. The seller also said that whenever they go near it, the temperature around them drops, even in the hottest weather. In the end, they listed it on eBay and sold it for only $17.50, the cheapest item on this list, but also the creepiest.